to you and your guys. 31-20 win in your conference opener against Campbell. Certainly, the first half, I'm guessing, didn't start quite the way you wanted, but quite a comeback by your team. Just your impressions overall on the win.
Well, the only mistake that you said right there is it started out exactly the way we wanted it. There was a challenge to our team to start fast. It's something we haven't been able to do very well. And we took the first drive right down the field, scored a touchdown, covered a kick solidly, played a three and out defense, got a 30-yard punt return. Things were cranking along pretty good. And then we found ways to, as much as we liked that start, we found a way the rest of the half to kind of to put ourselves in really harm's way. And I think that when we walked in, halftime, 17-10 game, 3-point game after all those egregious mistakes, I think we're very fortunate. I think Campbell's a good football team. They took advantage of a number of things that took advantage of our mistakes. 17 points off turnovers is when we made mistakes that made us pay for it. But second half, I think we just, we learned a lot about ourselves. They didn't panic. They stayed in the game. We just continued to do what we do. We did a heck of a lot better. And the fourth quarter was probably our best football. So, pleased with the outcome, pleased with a conference victory, of course. But like everybody on this call is probably saying, is that, we got to make a lot of improvement from week one to week two and continue improving throughout the season to reach our fullest potential. But there's certainly plenty of highlights on that game film that were worthy of some pretty spectacular play.
Let's talk about some of those highlights. Offensively, really good night from Devin Farrell, 275 yards and a couple of touchdowns. And then Marquise Buchanan doing what he does, 6 catches, 167, and then with that big touchdown to make it a two-score game late. How did you feel like those guys performed offensively?
Well, I thought they did great. I mean, I think Devin's playing at a very, very high level right now. He's got a real good command of, our offense, which is, we've morphed a little bit. Our schemes have developed a little bit more in terms of full field reads. The progressions are very ingrained in him, and he's running through them and delivering the ball to a number of different people. So I think he's operating high level. Marquise is always going to give you that threat. He's just a natural kid to find a way to get open, and those two are working really well together. Greg Gaines, made a couple of inspirational, catches and had a few misses. And then, you look at Antoine Littleton, you throw that guy at you 25 times, your short yards in the first half right now turn into longer ones. He's a very great kid and very tough runner, runs behind his pads. He's a force to contend with. But I thought offensively, I thought they played very well, and I thought defensively, I was thrilled to see their development through the course of the game. Particularly, they were very consistent, and really aside, if we didn't turn a football over, they played a game, a three or a 10-point game, something like that. So a lot of no names there, but they showed up and played, and we've got to fix a lot of stuff on specials. So I think that was a weak spot for us, and we need to get that right.
First question this morning for me, and good morning.
Morning, Jim. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Awesome. You mentioned, wanting to get off to faster starts, and you said that's something that has been a problem for you. Is that thinking back to last year and years past? Is it specific to this team? And, how do you make sure that the fast starts continue and then you don't lull in the second like you did?
If I had all those great answers to all those questions right now, I'd be writing books about it. But, it's, you know, certainly you do take from some past experiences with our teams. And then then on the other side of your mouth, you're talking about, hey, this is a new team. But, we know that in the past, there have been times where we didn't come out of the gates on fire. And I felt like we did that and then we achieved that. But unfortunately, the piece that goes along with your challenge for them to come out of the gates on fire is that once it's on fire right now to be able to fuel the fire and then stamp and, then knock it out early. But we opened the door for those guys. They took advantage of it. But this team is this team, and I think that it showed some character and some resilience. And so when you're looking from an overall perspective, it was a fantastic opening game for us. First off, because you can win, and then you can coach them extremely hard on the details of the things that were egregiously wrong and done improperly that knows that will prevent you from winning, not only championship, winning the next game. So, we've got a lot to work on.
Jim, you mentioned the defense. Really, as you said, other than the one long drive, they performed awful well. A big stop after the one turnover to hold them to three, kept the game a little bit tighter. And one of the guys, Case Mankins, certainly had a nice night. 6 tackles from the defensive line is not easy to do. Forced a fumble and sack. Just with so many new faces on that side, how did you feel like they performed?
I thought they did great. Great credit to the defensive staff and Coach Lazard coaches those defensive linemen, and we've had some injuries there, and he's had to kind of make shift. I thought they did an outstanding job, but Case was special. I think that the play of the game was when he knocked that ball out that really changed momentum. We were able to go ahead and we got 3 points out of it. We would have liked got seven, but the same time as his consistent play and energy was a key factor in it. And I thought that they played, better and better as the game went on. And as you mentioned, I think when you look at getting out of bad situations with field goals instead of touchdowns, I look at those as wins on defense, and I think they did that twice. And then we obviously had a 4-yard field for them to defend, so that's a tough one to ask for anything other. But you asked them for a prayer there, but they were able to punch it in on that one. But I think very solid performance and a lot of players that, can be in the lineup. So I think there's a number of guys that are very close in terms of their talent level and their understanding of their structures of the defense. And I think that we can play a lot of those guys. And it was really unknown going into this game how we would do in the secondary. And I thought they did an admirable job.
Yeah, follow up for me. Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, Jim, looking ahead to Stony Brook here, you're going on the road for the first time. They're playing at home for the first time. It was 41-0. Just the challenges of going against Stony Brook this week.
I think they're a well-coached physical football team. I think you watch the San Diego State game. I think that's a tough start. That defense was swarming around at San Diego State pretty good. They were pretty impressive, and we're able to shut them down a little bit. But defensively, I think they run around. They create some problems schematically. Got good-looking players, and I think they've got that building belief. I mean, here's a team that won 8 games. They lost their last 2. They would have been a 10-win team. I think that they're looking to take their next step, and I think that I think it's going to take every bit of us to be able to go down to their place and walk away with a win. I think it's going to be a very good football game to watch, and I think an extremely physical one as well.
Next question for Bill. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, guys. Jim, just a question on Terrence Campbell. The other night, he didn't get any touches, but he was on the field in the game. I wonder just what he's done so far through camp and in the run-up to Campbell to put himself in a position where he can play right away as a true freshman.
He's just a very consistent performer when we get him out on the practice field. I think that we got Antoine and we gave Winnow a shot of the ball and he put it on the ground, and that kind of gets you in the doghouse for a little bit. And Gabe's going to be back on the field. We're not going to walk away. He's a good player as well, but as a freshman, he's come in, he's learned what to do. He's a guy that runs behind his pads. He's a big body. He's an impressive kid, and I think he's got a really bright future.
Thanks.
Got another one for me. Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, Jim, you just kind of mentioned the ball security part of it. You had the special teams early on. You had that fumble down in the red zone. How will you coach ball security this week? Or is it just take a guy off the field until they learn their lesson type of thing?
No, I mean, you got to give guys chances to, resurrect themselves from the doghouse, of course. But, we coach ball security every day, but then when you see on the kickoff return, we were not aligned proper. There were a number of different mistakes, and Bora was running around like a chicken with his head cut off, and the ball was out there. I mean, it was inevitable the way he was carrying it. That's a young guy mistake. Winnow would just, he was in the 10-yard line and just, he got himself, in a bad spot with the ball, going down. You got to keep it high and tight all the way through the ground, Angel Sanchez, it's a mental mistake more than it was fumbling that punt. He just fair caught it, and we would have been in business. And he's back there because he's shown through the course of camp that he's the most sure-handed guy we had. But I'm sure when you come out of the gates, you get a 30-yarder, and you're feeling, hey, I'm going to do that again. There may have been a little bit of that in his mind, but he learned his lesson, and I'm sure he'll be fine with that. So and there was a miscue on the goal line. There just really it was just a really strange play. So they're all fixable, but we work it every day. The kids are always doing it. In fact, you might have called it moderate assault in our takeaway circuit today. I was watching the offensive coaches, and they all had their punching bag, arms on there, and they were knocking balls around, and the kids were feeling it. So everybody's got the message. They know the importance of holding on to the ball.
All right, Jim, thanks so much for the time this morning. Safe travels to the island, and look forward to talking again next week.